You are asking me about the health issues across the LGBT spectrum, and I think that one of the most important pieces to do here is to be able to break down that there are no such a thing like a common denominator set of diseases or health issues or mental health issues for all of the segments of the acronyms. What maybe could be a common denominator is some of the mental health issues that come from the internalized homophobia, the social homophobia, rejection by family members, bullying at school or at the workplace. So because those are kind of common to all the categories, we see that there is a higher incidence of depression, generalized anxiety disorder.
Things people are talking about, though, in the gay community is mental health and drug addiction, which I have both. I had both as a problem, so I'm aware of that. But there's a sense that just being gay puts you under a certain amount of stress that can lead to symptoms not unlike post-traumatic stress disorder.
Healthcare in the gay community is probably more focused on sexual issues of sexuality and sexually related conditions. Like you, for example, anal cancer has been mentioned as an issue. I presume that that's something that is more of consequence in the gay male community.
Certain parameters and common denominators or common illnesses among our population of lesbians. One that you see, heart disease, is not specifically for LGBT or lesbians, but the more risk factors you have in your life, risk factor quotation mark, the more tendencies to have a heart disease you will have. And what are those risk factors? Obesity, substance abuse use, mental health, stress.
They're the same health issues in the broader population. I mean, the HIV is a predominant one in the gay men's community. Hepatitis is across the board. I would say that in the gay and lesbian community, there is probably a higher incidence of obesity. Certainly in the kink community, I think so. I think that leather and kink tends to be a refuge for people with body image issues. They're more accepted. So obesity and obesity-related conditions like diabetes and heart disease probably have a higher prevalence in the kink community.
So there's existing things that I know are troubling, but it's all family history rather than anything related to specifically being gay, because I already have HIV. And I know that I will probably die, I'm more likely to die of high blood pressure or diabetes than I am of HIV because the medicines are so good now.
I think the health issues in our community is changing in a real unique way right now with HIV and PrEP. It used to be, I had friends who in the late 90s, they turned 40 and they're like, God, I'm 40, I didn't think I'd be here. What am I supposed to do? And they're now, getting close to in their 60s.
Well, it's really generational now. I mean, we have all the people who went through the AIDS period before antiretroviral drugs were available, who saw a decimation. They lived with people dying. Sorry. I sang at a lot of funerals.
I'm not sure whether there's a difference between healthcare in the gay community and the straight community. I'm not out to my physician particularly, although I don't act any different. I don't think it's necessary that I'm out to my physician.
Does your healthcare provider how accepting is your healthcare provider of your trans status? Because there have been trans people who could not get medical services because no doctor would treat.
I think healthcare in the gay community, at least in the Bay Area, is better. I think we're more likely to go to the doctor.
It's health is a balance of mind, body, and spirit. Health is the entire system of human being balanced in relation to one another. Your physical, your emotional well-being, your psychological well-being, your view, how you view the world. I think is what I would define health as.
Do you ever feel a sense of isolation?
No.
No.
No, that I don't feel. I'm happy. Oh, excuse me. I can be happy just walking down the street. I'm just enjoying the fact that the freedoms that we have today. You know, I can be myself.
I have felt a sense of isolation in the past, particularly when I was using, because my friends were so hurt by the use that I broke off contact with most of them. And the only contact I had was with other users. And people who are using are not the most dependable folks, myself included.
I've written extensively about HIV/AIDS and aging, and there's I think what we fear the most is isolation. More than dying, we fear isolation.
Home about a month later and came out to my sister and my mom, and it was hard because my sister actually asked me not to tell anybody in her community. My mom, bless her heart, went to a therapist for the first time in her life the next day, and then called me and said, I love you, and as long as you're happy, that's all that matters. So that was great.
My greatest struggle has always been probably with the average everyday person, of how they perceive you to be. They assume that I get a lot of assumptions that I'm one way, and I'm really a gentle soul. I'm very spiritual.
My greatest struggle with my sexual orientation was being part of a spiritual organization that was, number one, sexually repressed, and number two, really homophobic. And I had to keep my real identity under wraps so that I could advance in the organization, which is really a shame. But that's what it was like in those days.
I haven't hardly had any struggles at all with it. When I realized I was different and I came out to my father at 18, he said, son of a bitch, son, you better go up and get a 6-pack of beer. So over a 6-pack of beer and a couple of hours, we had a little discussion. And he said, well, skin is skin. And what's important, son, is that you love somebody. I just want you to love somebody. So you bring your boyfriends over here, and I will love them like my sons. And at that point, I said, if my father loves me this way, fuck everybody else. I don't care about that.
Yeah, I felt discriminated against. Excuse me, when I first went when I was in the work world, but it had nothing to do with my gender choices. It was just that I was a female.
Was I treated differently because of my sexuality? I treated myself differently because of my sexuality. Because it just, it was dangerous to be out in the early days. It was better to be in the closet. So I didn't give anybody a chance to really treat me differently.
You said it was dangerous. In what way?
Oh, you could get fired, or you could be, punched in the nose, or murdered, or whatever, or blackmailed.
I would say that in the men's leather community, or in the leather community in general, people of color have a harder time being accepted and integrated into that group. So there are, in some parts of the country specifically, race-oriented kink groups, because blacks and Hispanics don't feel welcome in some of the larger leather organizations. So as a white guy, I haven't felt that exclusion. I would say that my race has kept me from being excluded from those. I would say that certainly in the Bay Area, and I grew up in LA, I became a gay man in LA and lived there for years. I don't think that in the gay male community in general, race was a real issue. But it certainly is in the leather community.
I'm realizing more and more is just how privileged I am as a white man and a white gay man. I'm really on top of the pecking order right now. It's not always going to be that way.
Working for the Chicago Tribune at this time as a consultant, and it emerged that I was a gay man or a homosexual, if you like to call it. Like I mentioned, I abhor labels. And we lost, because of that came out, and most interestingly enough, it was an African American woman who rejected a $100,000 contract because she found out who I was. And that was a very personal discrimination and a great blow, not only to my person, but financially and economically.
Did I ever treat someone differently at work because they were or weren't gay? If I knew someone was gay, it would sort of add a new layer on what was going on with that person. So I can think of one case where I was a little more lenient with someone for her work history once I found out she was a lesbian.
So being gay and being a graphic designer and being in San Francisco, I would go to a party and every third person was a gay graphic designer living in San Francisco. And so it was very normal of who I was and what I did. And so I don't know if being gay helped me in my career, but it was a part of my career.
To be honest, I feel it's easier to make gay friends, just because there are shared experiences there that give us a shorthand that we don't have to kind of explore how to explain something to people about ourselves or to divine something in them. But I also feel that having straight friends is really important to me and has always been important to me.